Well, in the wake of Vodacom's current dispute regarding whose idea the Please Call Me's is, we've decided to highlight the issue of copyright from a song or any sort of invention. Just how does one go about protecting their intellectual property? Well, let's chat about those issues surrounding intellectual property and copyright. I'm joined in studio by attorney specializing in intellectual property law. That's eNCA Khumalo. A huge pleasure to have you with us. Let's say I'm sitting at home minding my own business. I get an idea, perhaps it's a song, perhaps it's a creative concept, an invention, whatever it is. How do I go about protecting that while seeking funding or help to realize that dream?
I think it depends on the nature of the item you're talking about. If you're talking, for example, about a song, there's actually no provision in this country for a copyright registration. So what you'd have to do there, basically, you have to approach people like your Sam Rose of this world and register actually a particular song with them. At least that way you've got actually objective proof that in fact you're the one that came up with a song, so to speak. But if you're talking about, for example, an invention that is potentially patentable, what is prudent to do is before you approach your funders, at least file a provisional patent specification with the Patents Office in Pretoria. That actually gives you a period of a year in which you can actually then go out and approach the market to test if they actually have an interest or appetite in your invention before you actually incur the cost of your final patent application. So that part is very important, because if, for example, if you start disclosing that invention before you file the provisional patent specification, you actually might destroy the novelty in your potential patent.
And it can be difficult to prove that the idea was yours. How do you go about proving it if, say, for example, you were not prudent enough to get it registered? How do you go about proving? What kind of evidence can you bring forward to say, this proves that I created this idea?
Yeah, then you've got a serious problem there. But generally what you then need to do really is then you look at a document trail, for example, who you spoke to on what day, and then try and show that that particular person to whom you exposed the idea, actually he could only have gotten it from yourself. But then you really got a huge mountain to climb if you do not take the prudent steps of actually at least filing your provisional patent specification before disclosing your idea to potential funders or potential partners.
I mean, the Vodacom issue comes to mind because it's one that's in the media at the moment, but how common are copyright and patent disputes in South Africa?
They're actually fairly common, but not extensively so. I think it's really because of the nature of the rights we're talking about. Because people generally have all these inventions in their heads, but generally never step out of the comfort zone and try and commercialize them. But there's a fair amount of it out there in the marketplace. Yeah. Are
we a creative bunch, we South Africans? Do we often come up with things that are inventive or new or different that would need to be protected? Do you have business as a professional in this industry?
No, certainly we are actually quite creative, but the problem though is we're not prudent and actually selfish enough in protecting those innovations, and that's where the challenge is, I think.
And how do we get the information out there to make sure that people know that when you've got this idea, you're not going to be abused and taken for a ride and perhaps given a fraction of what it's worth sometimes, because that's the case. Sometimes people are given money and it's just a small amount of what the actual idea is worth. Somebody develops it and makes millions.
I think it's down to information, like you rightly ask. I think there you've got to look at people like the companies and IP Commission in Pretoria. They've got a website where they describe these various types of intellectual property. There's also the SA Institute of Intellectual Property Lawyers, which also has got information on that. Otherwise, question of just word of mouth, getting to know who are the good IP attorneys out there and get them, approach them for advice and assistance.
Oh, there we go. Well, let's leave it there for now. Thanks again for your time. So if you're getting your creative juices flowing, or perhaps you're starting a new business, whatever it may be, prudence is what's necessary. eNCA Khumalo, they're chatting to us about the issues surrounding intellectual property and copyright.
News that moves. eNCA.com.